Hey there, world of YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to my art studio. As promised, I got a good painting for you today that I've entitled African Sunset. Let me bring the reference over and I'll show you what that looks like. This is what we're going to be painting. So again, just the elephant and the trees silhouetted against this beautiful sky. I'll show you how to do some birds and the sun and all of that. As with the last painting, down in the description, if you want the template for those of you that struggle a little bit with your drawing, if you want, I've included a template in the link, or in the description below. There's a link to this template for the elephant. All I used here for the sun, I'll show you that later when we get to that, but it's just a 6-inch round plate. Let me set this over so I can make reference to it as we go through the painting. And again, the sun was just one of these little 6-inch plates here, and I'll show you that. But you can use any, you could use a bowl or anything, a little plate, or if you want to make a circle, a template, you could, please feel free to, however you want to do that. I've toned this canvas already. Basically what I did is I took all of the colors that we're going to use in this painting and just mixed them, modeled them. Remember, modeled just means a mixture of colors, modeled them together and covered up the white of the canvas. So let's go through the materials that we're going to use, and then we'll jump right in and get started on this painting. Let me talk first about brushes. As with the last painting, since we're going to be painting a big portion of the canvas as a sky, I'm going to use a 2-inch. This just happens to be a Hake, H-A-K-E, just a soft goat hair brush, and that's what I'm going to use. Any big brush that you have that you can do some blending with will work. I'm going to use, this is an 1.5 inch chip brush, C-H-I-P, and this doesn't come from the art store. These types of brushes right here come from home improvement store. So if you have Home Depot, a Lowe's, Menards, I got these from Harbor Freight, and they're 59.79 cents each. So really cheap but good brushes. You'll see what we're going to use that for. Then I've got a 3/4 inch flat nylon brush, and this came in a set, Simply Simmons set that I picked up. The other two brushes that I'm going to use, I've got a filbert brush and then a small round brush, and what we're going to use the small round brush for is painting some birds in the background. I'll show you that when we get to that part of the painting. All right, let's talk, just let me run through the colors that I've got here. And again, if you're just starting, I recommend the Liquitex Basics paints. They're affordable, they're good quality paint, and that's what I recommend you use. Let me just run through, I got them here on a styrofoam plate that I've used many times, as you can tell. So let me just give you the colors that I'm using. Again, take this, make it your own. If you want to use different colors, then go for it. But I'm using white, a little bit of black. This is burnt sienna. It's just kind of a reddish brown color. I've got cad yellow, cad orange, and this is a cad red medium. And again, it's just the red that I had. So if you've got a cad red light or a cad red dark or just a primary red, any of those colors will be fine. We're just going to use mainly the yellow. Of course, will be for primarily for the sun, but we're going to put a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red in with the orange to paint the sky. And let me get some of this junk out of the way here. And just to show you, I've got a piece of charcoal here, soft fine charcoal, and we're going to come up, I'm guessing, what is that, maybe 2.5 inches or so from the bottom, and I'm just going to kind of make a line that's going to be where our land area goes, and I'm not overly concerned about that. That's just a rough estimate. If you don't want to, you don't even have to put that in, but just to give you some sort of an idea of how we're going to paint our sky. This will be our land area silhouetted, and then the elephant will be silhouetted against the sun and trees and all of that. So let's get started. We're going to have lots of fun. This painting is going to go relatively quick. It's not a great detailed painting or anything like that. Just we're going to have some fun. Let me I'm going to grab my big brush here, a little bit of water, and if you want, you can actually paint some water right on the canvas, and you don't want a lot of drips or anything, but if you just take a little bit of water, paint it on your canvas, that'll actually help with the blending time that you have with the acrylics, because as long as you keep the acrylics moist and wet, you can keep blending and keep blending and keep blending them. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go right into the orange, straight into my CAD orange with the 2-inch brush, and just you can see I've got the orange on there, and I'm going to paint the middle part of my sky with just the orange color. And you can see you kind of get this little bit of a streaky look. If you like that in your sky, then you know, I think that adds a little bit of interest. And in fact, I think I said I was going to paint the middle. I'm actually going to paint the entire sky area with my CAD orange. So let me do that here really quickly. And I'm not too worried about, again, not too worried about my charcoal line there. I'm just going to paint that in later. All right, so I've got orange over the entire top section there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to take, and I'm not going to worry about cleaning the brush. So I've still got this orange on the brush. I'm going to take the corner of my brush, go right into the yellow. See that? Right into my yellow, and then at the bottom I want to put some yellow because I kind of want to do this streaky, like there's some reflection from the sun, just to kind of brighten things up here a little bit. I just like this look. I know it's not going to be exactly like the reference, but always good to kind of mix it up a little bit and change things up a little bit and not paint the same thing over and over exactly the same way. So a little bit of the yellow down in the bottom part of the sky, and when this is dry you could even come back in, and we may do that once I dry this. I'll have to pause the video, and I've got a blow dryer. I'll blow dry this. All right. And then we'll come back, maybe even put some streaks of the yellow or whatever, and do that. If you wanted, you can pretty much do this however that you want to do. If you don't like the color, change it up a little bit. All right. Now and again, without cleaning my brush, I'm not worried about at this point cleaning my brush. I'm going right into my red, again on the corner of the brush, and right in the top part of my sky I'm going to put this red on top of the orange and just blend it. And I'm using X type strokes. If you need, a little bit of water on the brush to help the paint not be quite so sticky. And again, back into the red, and some in this upper corner here. And again, you can make these colors as blended or as streaky as you like. A little bit more of the red up here in the top corner on this side. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little bit, I think, right up, more up in the center part at the top. And again, I'm going over here, I'm just getting a little bit of water. My paint's a little bit sticky. Needs a little bit of water to help it flow there. So you can see some of the movement in the sky, which I think looks okay. I'm going to step back here and take a look. And I recommend that you do that as well. If you step back several feet away from your painting, it gives you a good idea of how you're doing with your blending and colors. If you, at this point, if you didn't like anything, now would be the time to change it. I think I need to do a little more blending in this area here. Oh, bless me. Apologize for that. So I'm gonna just a little bit of water on my brush. I'm not worried about cleaning my brush off. I'm just gonna grab a little bit of the orange right here. I'm just not real happy with that particular part of my sky. So I'm just gonna blend that a little bit more. All right, and I think that's about all I'm gonna do for right now with my sky. If you wanted, I could show you if you wanted to, I guess, opaque things a little bit. You could take just a touch of white and come in here with the white, and the white will add just a little more brightness if you wanted that in the center part of your sky there, just to, again, just kind of help. Almost look like clouds or something floating through. So if you wanted to bring a little bit of the white through here, don't be afraid to experiment with that. Again, you just kind of have to play around, and especially if you're learning, man, you just got to get on there and put some paint on the canvas and play around with your colors and all that kind of stuff. I think I'm actually going to bring a little more yellow into the bottom part of sky here. Again, just because I want to. If you don't want to, then by all means don't do that. All right, again, just big blending X-type strokes to blend everything together. Now what I'm going to do is just go right into this bottom section. Is just our land area silhouetted against the background. You could, and what I'm doing here, I'm not cleaning my brush, but just rinsing a little bit of the orange color out of it. Again, I did not clean it, and if you wanted, just so because we're blending, I'm just wet the area. It gives me a little more blending time, and then I'm going to go right into my sienna color, which again is kind of a reddish brown color, and paint that. And we're going to use the black that I put out to darken that. You could use, if you wanted to, just use straight black and not worry about, if you don't have sienna, you could paint your silhouette with just black, and that would be fine. I just, I had some of the brown, so I just thought I would throw it in there. And I know that's going on kind of messy, but I'll clean the top up here in just a second, show you how that works. A little more of the brown mixed in there. touch more of the black, and just till you get the color that you would like to have. So let me show you how I'm going to finish this out here. Kind of got the color initially on there, as you can see, and blended fairly well. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take on my brush here is some of the brown, the burnt sienna color with black on my brush as well. Just mix a little bit of that right on the end of my brush there. Bring it to a nice edge. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to paint down. So I'm going to start, and this is where you just kind of shape how you want your land to look. You don't want just a straight line because it is the land. And so I'm just going to come across like this. You can see, and I like the brush strokes. So if you don't like the brush strokes, then by all means, you know, paint it smooth. But I like the brush strokes, and so I'm going to kind of make a little bit of a hilly-ish kind of area, I guess, and almost makes it look kind of like grass without having to do a lot of work to make it look like that. So all right, so there is our entire background done, and very little time, as you can see, to get to this point. So what I need to do, and again, just as a matter of a reminder to you, when you're done with your brush, you don't want to just leave it standing in the water. So just wet the bristles, lay it on a plate, which I've got my brushes laid out here. So I've dipped these bristles in the water so they're nice and wet. Paint can't dry in them because the acrylic paint dries, it'll ruin your brushes. Let me pause the video for just a second. I'm going to grab the blow dryer and then get this nice and dry, and I'll be back with you. All right, welcome back. I've taken just a few minutes with the blow dryer. I've got this all, it's nice and dry. This underneath this underpainting, I guess you would call this, our sky and then our landmass there. And it's all nice and dry and ready for the next step. So let me kind of show you what we're going to do here. I'm going to use just, again, I've got a 6-inch, this is just a 6-inch paper plate, and I'm going to find a pencil here. I'm going to just use my white pastel. I used that in the last video. Position my sun kind of where I think I want it to be. Don't really want to go dead center. That's kind of I mean, there are exceptions if you're painting portraits and other things, but usually putting subject matter dead center is usually a no-no. You can Google and other things and find out something about, it's called the rule of thirds, and basically it's more pleasing to the eye if stuff is not right dead center. So I'm not going to put dead center. I'm going to go off to the right, come down a little bit, and I think I'm going to shoot for about right there for my sun. And I'm just going to trace around the plate with the pastel. And again, just, you don't have to push hard and all of that with the pastel. As long as you can see it, hopefully you can see that on the video, but as long as you can see it, that's perfect. You know, this will clean off once the paint's dry. You can take a damp paper towel and the pastel will just wipe right off. You could do the same thing if you have soft vine charcoal. You could use the same once the paint's dry. You just this is going to be a lighter color, so I just used the pastel because I have it. So all right, now the sun we have to do in a couple of different steps. If you remember back to the painting that we did last time, Howl at the Moon, we did our moon in a couple of different steps. We have to do the same thing with the sun. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my 3/4 inch brush. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use white, and I'm going to paint the entire area with white. And I know that may seem kind of maybe strange to you, but this yellow is so transparent. Actually, I could show you here really quickly. If we just tried to paint yellow on top of here, it's so transparent, it's not going to show up. It would be so difficult to do. So what I'm going to do is give the base layer, or the underpainting for our sun, and I'm just going to do that in white. So I'm going to go into just pure white here, and a little bit of water to help the paint flow. And again, as you're going around the edge here, try to keep your edge soft. That just will help the overall look of your painting. But this step right here, as you'll see, the paint's going to look kind of streaky and brush strokey and all of that. It's really not important to get it smooth. I guess if you would rather see it that way, and again, I'm over here just getting a little bit of water, kind of help my paint flow a little bit. I guess if you want it smooth, you could take the time and do that. I just don't think it's necessary to do that. So again, trying to follow the pastel pencil line here and keep my edge. What I mean by keeping the edge soft is I just don't want a ridge of paint along this edge. When we go to further into the painting and putting the elephant in and the birds in and all that, if there's a ridge of paint, it gets to be difficult to cover up. So trying to keep the edge as soft as I can. And again, just trying to follow the line of the pastel. And if you go right up to it and it just kind of will blend into your painting, you may not even have to clean it off if you don't want to. All right, so that's step one in painting our sun. Just get some white paint on there, get it covered. And what I need to do, and I know that wasn't a lot of time, and I hate to pause the video again, but I need to hit this with the blow dryer and get it really good and dry so we can come back and put the yellow on top and really make our sun pop against that sky, that background. So let me pause the camera. I'm going to grab the blow dryer. I'll be right back with you. All right, I'm back with you again. Just taking a couple of minutes. Hit this with the blow dryer, and this is completely dry here. If yours is still a little sticky, then you need to go back and hit it again with the blow dryer. And if you're using the blow dryer on the warm setting, it can make it a little bit sticky. So try it on the cool setting. And if yours is still feeling a little bit sticky, you need to dry it a little bit more and wait a little bit until that is totally dry, until you move on to this next section. So, all right, so here's what we're going to do. Again, I'm sticking with my 3/4 inch brush. If you want to use a different brush, then by all means use what you have. What I'm going to do is I've got a paper towel here. I'm just going to get it a little bit damp here. Don't want it soaking wet, just damp is fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and just get this pastel off of here, and that just takes a second. So that I don't have to worry about that showing through the rest of my painting for my sun. And there we go. That's all it takes to get the pastel off of there. Alright, so back to the 3/4 inch brush. And what I'm going to do is just start with the yellow. And you'll see now, as we put the yellow on top of the white, it just pops right out because we have that base on there, the base color of the white. So that just will help our color show up, just kind of opaques the color a little bit since the yellow is so transparent. And if you wanted, if that's too yellow, and it kind of is for me, I'm going to just take a little bit of white and tone that a little bit, tone that down a little bit so it's not quite as yellow, I guess would be a good way to describe it. And notice I've started in the middle. I'm going to work my way out. I just get in the habit of doing that, and then when I get to the edge, I can keep the edge nice and soft. But again, just a little bit of the yellow, and again, how bright you want your sun and all of that is really up to you. Use your, start now. If you're just learning, get in the habit of, I mean, I'm glad that you're painting along with me, but get in the habit of using your artistic license. Paint the things, paint what you want to paint, and paint them the way you want to paint them. So again, I'm just going out to my edge here, and I'm trying to keep that edge just nice and soft. And I've mixed, again, white in with my yellow, and I'm not too worried about, you know, if I go outside my lines a little bit. I hear people all the time talking about coloring inside the lines. It just don't worry about that. As the artist, you do what you want to do, and don't worry about coloring in the lines. And if you're a parent, listen, and your kids are dabbling in art, do not fuss at them to stay inside the lines. Let them experiment and do their thing with art. It's not necessary to stay inside the lines. Be creative in your artwork. Do what you want to do, what you enjoy. Again, I kind of like the brushstrokey look. If you don't like that, then you know, again, paint it the way that you want to paint it. So I'm going back with just a touch more of the paint, kind of opaque this a little bit. All right, I think that's going to just about do it. I'm going to step back here a little bit closer to this top edge. I don't think I did that very well, but there we go. That's better. I can smooth that out a little bit more. All right, I'm going to step back, take a look at mine. I suggest you do the same. Yeah, I think I can live with that. Looks pretty good. So let me grab the original real quick, so bear with me just a second. And you can tell we're not exactly, but that's fine. What I want to do is I want to take some of this orange color, and I'm going to pull some clouds in, and that's just a fun thing to do to kind of break up the edge, and especially if you've got a spot that you don't really like around the edge, that's a good way to kind of cover that up. Just throw a cloud over it, and then you don't have to worry about it. But I'm going to pull some clouds in around the edges here, and then we'll move on from there. Set that back over so I can make reference to it. So again, I'm going to stick with the same brush. I've got the yellow and the white on my brush. I'm going to go into some of the orange. And I'm not worried about trying to match this color. If it's a different color, I'm not worried about that at all. So I'm just going in. I've grabbed a little bit of the orange, a little bit of the red, just kind of mixed all that together. And I'm going to go up here and just test it a little bit. I know it's not going to be the same, but I'm not too worried about that. You can see there it's a little bit on the light side, I think, for me. So I'm going to add some more red and some more of the orange. Let's see if we can't darken that up just a little bit. And my brush is goopy with paint here, so I'm going to just, from mixing the colors together, so I'm just going to get a paper towel here and wipe some of that off of my brush, because that's going to cause me a problem when I go to put my clouds in. Alright, so just a little bit of the red, a little bit of the orange, and on the corner of the brush. So I'm going to paint with the corner of the brush here, and I'm going to go test the color again. And yeah, I think that's close enough of a match. Not trying to match the sky color exactly, just fairly close. And then on the edge of the brush, and I'm going to bring across my sun. And I know it's not dry. If you find that you have issues getting your colors and your clouds to blend out, you could always dry the paint here. I'm not going to worry about that too much, because and I'm trying not to block your view here, but what I'm doing is just using the edge of the corner of the brush and tapping on the canvas. And if it's too bouncy, you can just push in on it a little bit, and that'll keep it from bouncing around too much. And just make your clouds the shape however you want to make them. And I'm okay with some of this color kind of bleeding back into the sky. I think it just adds a little bit of interest. Again, I'm just painting with the very corner of the brush and just kind of dragging these clouds in here, just trying to make them a nice soft shape. I'm gonna put one on the other side here, probably just a little bit up from the center part of the sun. Again, if you need just a touch of water to help your paint flow, then do that. And again, mine's picking up a little bit because my sun is not dry, so I'm picking a little bit of that color up from my sun color, and then when I come back out here into the dark area, it's a little bit lighter because I've picked up some of that, but it contrasts against the darker background. So I don't mind that so much. If you don't like that, then you paint them the way that you want. Again, your shape is entirely up to you. Again, just using the corner of the brush, and I'm twisting it and turning it all in different directions to get the shape that I want. Okay, so there's that, and I think I'm going to do one more down in this lower section here. And you could do as many clouds, as few clouds as you like, but I'm going to do another one here. I think something a little different shape or something here, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. All right, yeah. Again, as I suggest you do very often as you're painting, I'm going to step back, look at that. There we go. Some clouds coming in to our sun. Again, it's just a little bit of the red, a little bit of the orange, and however you want it to look. And I'm just adding a little, I wanted a little darker color in here, so just adding that. All right, I think I'm just going to go with that. Fairly happy with that. All right, I'm just going to rinse my 3/4 inch brush out a little bit. Some of that paint buildup out of there. And then I'm going to take that, set it off to the side. And I think the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to paint in our trees. I'm going to put a fairly sizable tree here in this section of the canvas. So a fairly decent sized tree here. And then I'm going to put a smaller one here. And I'm going to bring it up just a little bit higher than this cloud here. And then the other one I'm actually going to bring up so that it's actually over the top area of my sun here. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, back to the 3/4 inch brush. I've again cleaned out some of the paint. I didn't go wash it, I just in my water bowl there. And for the rest of the painting, we are going to use a combination of the burnt sienna, which is the brown color, and our black. So I'm just going to mix that together here. Want a fairly dark color, something that's going to be in line and kind of match with this. You can test it if you want. Water to get the paint nice and creamy so it'll flow. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the 3/4 inch brush. I'm going to work it back and forth in the paint like this, bring it to a nice sharp point on the end. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's at a nice sharp edge. And then just decide where your tree trunk is going to be. And I'm going to start with a thin line, because remember, trees are thin at the top, tree trunks thin at the top, thicker at the bottom. So I'm going to start about here, start with light pressure, and as I come down, I'm going to more and more pressure to make the tree wider. And we want a decent sized tree, so if you didn't get it as big as you wanted, the tree trunk, especially at the bottom here, don't be afraid to go back over and get the shape that you want. I'm kind of bouncing the brush as I come down. It kind of gives that rough edge, because you know the trees, the bark on the trees and all of that, it's just not straight like a a telephone pole. So all right, so there's that. I went back in a little bit more water there. just to help the paint flow a little bit. I'm bringing my brush back to a sharp point. So both sides, tap, 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 tap. And that gets the brush to a sharp edge. And then we want to bring in some branches. So you can have as many or as few as you want. Again, start thin, more pressure, and then just blend into your main trunk like so. I think I'm going to come out here. Bring something in kind of like so. And again, you do as many or as few as you feel comfortable and want to do. Again, sharp point. More pressure as you get closer to the tree, kind of bounce, makes it that kind of rough. Gives it I don't know if jagged's the right word, but it's just not as sharp. It kind of makes the edge a little fuzzier, which lends to gives a little more authenticity to our tree, I guess, about a better way to describe it, I guess. All right. And you can always come back in, add more, because there's always branches everywhere, so you know, if you want to add a bunch, you can definitely do that all through here. And I may add some more as we start painting in our leaves. But for now, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to put this in. I'm basically going to do the same process. So tap, 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 bring it to a sharp point. And somewhere in here, and I'm just going to pull down, make myself a nice shape, make it a little bit wider, pull a few branches, and I think that's about all I'm going to do for right now. With the 3/4 inch brush anyway. So I'm going to just wet the bristles, set that onto my plate, and I'm going to go to this chip brush, and these come in all different sizes. This one just happens to be 1.5 inches. I've got one here that's 1 inch. I have others that are 1/2 inch. Again, use the size that you're comfortable with using, but just again, my recommendation is use as big a brush as you can to get the job done, and I think you'll like your paintings better. Now, the leaves on the trees, if you've seen pictures of the trees and African trees and all of that, the leaves, they seem to be very flat, very horizontal on the trees. So that's how I'm going to paint mine. Again, I'm going into a little bit of water. This being a natural bristle brush, it will soak up a ton of water. So what I do is when I dip it in my bowl, I just kind of shake it out a little bit. So that, but again, I'm in my studio area. If if you have to worry about getting stuff all over, then you need to be conscious of that. But what happens is you get the bristles wet, and I don't know if you can, hopefully you can see that, how they kind of go in all different directions and stuff, and that's going to help us with our making our trees. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the same dark color, and I'm going to go straight in. I'm not going to go back and forth and load a lot of paint into the brush. I'm just going to go straight in, and what I'm trying to do is get paint on the end of the bristles. Let's see if you can see that. Okay, so right on the end of the brush, just tap And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start here. And again, if the canvas bounces too much, you can kind of push in on it just a touch and it won't be as bouncy. But I'm going to go in, I usually start with the corner. And I'm just tapping. And then as you bring things out, you know, they'll have a tendency to get fuzzier and fuzzier. And so there we go. I'm going to just kind of work my way, and you want to make random shapes as you go. You don't want everything to look the same, of course. Nature typically isn't symmetrical. Nature is usually random. So I'm just going to come in and just tap some of these. Don't be afraid to go off the edge of your canvas as well. So you see I took that one a little bit off the edge of the canvas there. Just a tiny bit of water if you need it. Again, if this canvas is really really bouncy when I do that, so I'm just holding in on it so that it doesn't bounce quite as much. And again, the paint right on the end of the bristles, and then straight in with your brush, and just tap in and form the shape of your tree. And you can see it's pretty fuzzy, which is great. And I'm going to show you there's another step that we'll do on top of this to really make things pop out. So again, a little bit of water I'm shaking out into my bowl over there. I'm shaking the excess water out of this brush, and then I'm going right into the paint, and just right on the end of the bristle, right on the end of the brush. And again, don't be afraid to experiment with your shape and all that kind of stuff. Get this the way that you want it to look. And spin your brushes around. Don't be afraid to, you don't have to just keep your brush in one direction. So as you're going, you can spin your brush around. You want to see some of the sky coming through. You can see I got that. The sky is coming through my tree, so it's not totally solid. All right. I think I'm going to leave that one for now and go over here and work on this one a little bit. Again, same process, just same brush, same process, just tapping straight in with the brush, getting the paint on the very end. And don't be afraid. I mean, I know we painted the clouds and stuff on there, and I'm covering some of that up, but you know, that's how it goes. You paint some of this stuff in the background and some of it gets covered up and all of that, but that's just part of the process, so don't get frustrated with that. Oh, I spent all that time painting a cloud and then I covered it up. But all right, so that is the basics there of our tree. And again, I'm gonna do the same thing with these, with this brush that I've done with all my other ones. Dunk the bristles in the water, lay it there. All right, I'm gonna jump back over to this tree, show you how I'm gonna try to finish out. I'm switching to my filbert brush. You could do this with the round brush. You could use any brush that you want. I'm just using the filbert at this point. A little bit of water on the bristles, going right into the paint, kind of working it in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to tap with the very end of the brush and just define the shape of the leaves a little bit more. You know, if it's too fuzzy for you, which I kind of feel like mine is, got a little bit fuzzy, so I'm actually going to need a little more black. So let me just get out a little more paint here. I put out very little black this time, but I need a little bit more. There we go. So again, I'm using a mixture of the burnt sienna and the black together. And I'm spinning my brush in all different directions as I do this. And again, I'm doing this because I just felt like it was a little bit fuzzy, and which will actually give a little more dimension to the tree. And so you can see just in a couple of seconds there that looks a little, to me, looks a little better. A little more like leaves, I guess, on the tree. And I'm just going to do that to all of these sections. And I'm not covering up what I put on, all of what I put on there earlier. I'm just putting some, and I made it a little darker, but I'm just putting a little more definition into my leaves because it's just really fuzzy, and I just feel like when I put this on the top, it just really helps everything just kind of tie together and gives a little more definition to the leaves. But again, if you're happy with the way yours turned out, you don't feel like you need to do this step, then by all means just go with it. Again, spinning the brush all different directions. And just tapping, and again, I'm holding in because this canvas is really bouncy for some reason, this particular one that I'm using. And you want to spin the brush because you don't want to just have, if you just use the brush the same way like this, then you'll have the shape of the filbert brush and it'll just be up, and that gets to be kind of boring shapes. And again, you want some randomness to what's going on here in your leaves. Alright, I think that's all I'm going to do. Pretty happy with that, I think. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do a little bit of that in this other tree, even though I think this one is not, doesn't need it as much as this other one, but there's a few spots like here where I think I want to do a little bit of it. A little bit out here. Again, spinning the brush in all different directions. And if you get something, you don't be afraid to use your finger and kind of, if you need to soften something. Had a little bit too harsh of a mark out there on the edge so that I didn't like, so I just softened it with my finger. Paints are all non-toxic and all of that. I'm not going to eat my paints anyway, of course, but the paints are non-toxic and all of that. So You don't have to worry about it getting on your hands or anything like that. As you can see, I have paint all over me, and no worries with that. I think that's all I'm going to do. So there's our trees. If you know you need a little more blend down here where your tree comes down into the ground area, you know, take care of that. All right, so I'm going to set this brush aside. Again, wet the bristles. And I didn't talk a lot about cleaning brushes. May do that in a different video. Right now I just don't want paint to dry in my bristles. All right, again, down in the description there's a link for the template for the elephant. If you want to use it, it's there. You can cut it out. I've just used a heavy piece of paper. This is just a heavy paper that I use to draw on. It's like a 160-pound paper, I think it is. So we're going to space our elephant here. I think I'm going to put him right about there. Again, you put yours wherever you like. And then I'm going to take this, and I'm actually going to use, I think this time, change it up a little bit. Let me just use this charcoal pencil here. And again, this just needs to be dark enough that you can see it. I might do it a little bit where you guys can see it, but again, I'm just using my template. If you're more comfortable, more advanced in your drawing techniques, and you want to sketch your own elephant, or maybe you want to use a different animal, maybe you want to use a giraffe or something like that, you know, that's always an option as well. All right, should be close enough there for us to get going and paint this in. All right, so again, if you want, in the description, link for this, you can print it out, have the template. And I'm going to go back. I'm just going to use the same filbert brush that I was using to detail out the leaves on the trees, going back to the same color, the black with some of the burnt sienna. So mixing that together to just, the black just darkens it up. To me, I mean, you could use straight black again, but by using a little bit of something else in with the black, it just keeps the black from being so cold and you know, somewhat of a dead color, I guess. So I always like to mix a little bit of color in with the black, just, and not use the straight black. So all right, so we just need to paint in the elephant, and I'm just gonna blob some paint on here in the middle and fill this in. May actually kick this part into time lapse, because again, it's not, once you've got this sketched on here, it's, you just fill it in. There's not a lot of instruction to this part of the painting. So again, just cover, it needs to be covered, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kick it into time lapse. I'm going to finish filling in the elephant. I may pull out the blow dryer, just dry it off a little bit so I can get rid of the pencil mark, and then we'll finish out. We're really close to the end. We're going to put a few birds up here flying around in the sky, and what I'm going to do, I'll kick in a time lapse, get this all done. I'm going to reposition. I'll zoom you into this part of the canvas as much as I can, so I can show you how to paint the few birds that we're going to put up here. All right, so here we go. All right, done with the time lapse there. You saw I just painted this in really quickly, and if you need to, you can take a damp paper towel and you can get rid of your charcoal pencil if there's any of that showing around the edge of your elephant there. Let me mention one other thing before we move off of the elephant here. In the time lapse, if you noticed, I used this brush the entire time. If you need for the edge of the tail or this area of the trunk, if you need to switch to a smaller brush just so you can have a little more detail, and I think I'm going to do that. I wanted to do it on real time here for you, so I'm going to go just take my round brush, because we're going to use a round brush, paint a few birds up in here anyway, give you a lesson on doing that. And so you could take this, it's just a small round brush, and any small brush that you have, if you want a little cleaner line, I guess. I'm not too worried about mine. I was pretty happy with what I got done there. Edge of the tail is kind of fuzzy there. I'm okay with that. But you could use this. I just wanted to mention that to you. You could pull out this smaller round brush, and if you needed to, if you felt more comfortable, I guess, in doing that detail. Okay, we're going to stay with this dark color. I'm going to show you how to put a few birds up here. I'm going to do, I'll probably just do 3 of them. And let me just see if I've got some paper or something that I can paint on here. Yeah, I'll just use this piece of paper here. So just a piece of canvas paper. I see this a lot in, I've watched a lot of other instructional type videos and stuff, and this is the kind of thing, if you're going to do these birds flying around, I'm going to show you how to do that. But if you got a piece of paper, you could do some practicing before you throw it on your canvas. What I usually do on the when we have paint parties here is I give everybody a piece of just it's just a scrap piece of paper for that very purpose, so you can practice a few things before it goes up on your canvas. But what I see a lot on some instructional videos is, oh, we're going to put birds in the sky, and they'll come in and they'll just do, and it looks like an M, you know, and they'll just do that. Listen, we don't, I'm going to show you a little better way, something that looks a little more like the shape of a bird. So let me just show you that on this paper here, and then we'll go up to the canvas and put a few of them on. But I recommend, if you need to, grab a piece of paper and practice a little bit. Now, using the round brush, being a synthetic, you're going to need, you're going to want to use plenty of water to get the paint fluid. And here's how we're going to do our birds. We're going to start out with the, I've made this into, or brought this to a very sharp point, and a very fluid paint and a sharp point on the brush. And I'm going to start kind of a straight line down, kind of a V shape, come out, and there's your bird. And that ends up being a lot more believable for a distant bird. And if you want one that's up close, you can put, you know, a little like that to kind of make the body, as opposed to just doing, you know, M's for birds. You know, that's a lot more believable. So that's what we're going to do. So practice those if you need to. But I'm going to put a couple of bigger ones up in here, and then one that's a little more distant. And again, we're just going to use the dark color. But you want plenty of water. So I'm going over here. I'm getting lots of water, and hopefully you can see that. I'm spinning my brush in the fluid paint, bringing it to a sharp point. Now, I will tell you that with this being dry, if you have a damp paper towel, you have a few seconds, if you put something on and you don't like it, you can take a damp paper towel and wipe it off, let the area dry, and then you can go back in and repaint it. So again, lots of water, roll the brush, bring it to a nice sharp point, fluid paint, and here we go. So I'm going to start, I think, about right here. I'm going to start with a and that's what I'm going to do for my bird. I'm going to put another one, and don't make them all going the same way. You can, I'm going to do one here that's a little bigger, and again, my canvas, for some reason, it's really bouncy, and so I'm just holding my hand in on here so it doesn't bounce around quite so much. So let me put one kind of, another one off into the distance here. And you could do as many of these as you want. I'm going to do one more kind of up there that's a little bigger. And I think that's all I'm going to do. I think that's going to finish out our painting African sunset. Again, wetting the brush, throwing it over to the side. Let me just take a minute and say thanks for following along. I hope you've enjoyed this painting. And if you have any questions for me, just throw them down in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer them for you if I can. And so again, I hope you've enjoyed African sunset. Again, if you need the template for the elephant, it's down in the description, and go back to the beginning and I listed out all of the brushes and paints and all of that. So again, I hope you've enjoyed painting along with me, and I'd love for you to thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back with you again very soon with another episode of Paint with Jim.